Rob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Hello to my YouTube buddies. Thanks for stopping by. It's the OCGFAM show. I missed you on Friday. I was busy. You know what I was doing? We had Green Room Live on Friday, and it was awesome. I wish you all could have been there. Actually, one of us was there. Humidor from the comments was there. I got to meet him. Super cool dude. Thanks for showing up. Hopefully in the future when we do these, we got one coming up pretty soon here. April 20th. Mike Amaranthus and Dr. Mike Amaranthus and Jeff Lowenfels are going to be. Hopefully we can all get together. I know a lot of you are far, far away, but people came from far and wide for this thing. It was a lot of fun, boy, being all together. Anyway, let me tell you about it. Tim McCormick and Rob Christiansen from Cultured Biologix, and it's here somewhere. Fullon were there with Pig Farmer from Heroes of the Farm. I got a Heroes of the Farm shirt. I should have worn it. It's awesome. Anyway, Heroes of the Farm, major farm here in Oregon, growing some of the most quality product in the world, in my opinion, and many people's opinions, talking about how to use nectar for the gods. And it was a NectarFam. It was like NectarCon. We should have that, NectarCon. It was amazing because Scott Ostrander from Nectar for the Gods, the big kahuna, was there. Pat Pooler from Heroes of the Farm. Donnie, new East Coast rep for Nectar for the Gods, was there. Just, oh my goodness, Newton Hayes from SLF 100. Oh my God, there was just so many people. There's Sean Bundy from Grain-Fed Worm Castings. I got news about Grain-Fed Worm Castings coming up for you. Gonna have some sizes to be able to sell that online. Anyway, I'm going on and on about it. It was an amazing thing, but here's the thing. I'm gonna play the video of the Green Room Live, and it was really, you know, it was ostensibly about Trigger and Fullon, but it was more about using Nectar for the Gods at scale and really kind of expanding your horizons on what Nectar for the Gods can do. There was a lot of people talking, not just the people, you know, on stage, me and the other guys, but Scott talking from the audience, Pat Pooler talking from the audience. It was cool. So what I'm thinking I'd like you to do is watch this video and pay close attention. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of real actionable stuff in here, but I think it might be something that really expands your horizons about what can be done with nectar, and maybe you'll have some questions that I can ask to all these people for you, get them on the show, some of these guys that were at the thing, and we can get more in depth to this. So I think this might be an entree into getting into some more advanced topics on Nectar for the Gods. So watch the video, check it out, and then I'll talk to you after. We ready to roll? Hey there! From Oregon's Constant Gardener, welcome to Green Room Live. If I know you were all going to show up like this, I would have planned this out, but I didn't, so we're just going to roll with it. So let's just go straight to introductions of who we got. You guys can introduce yourselves. Tim, go.
I'm Tim McCormick. I'm the owner of Cultured Biologix. We make beneficial microbes. We make goodies that help plants grow faster. We started about a year ago. We actually launched at OCG, so thank you everybody. Stoked to be back. We have been working hard on making sure you guys get content, making sure you get videos. I'm sure you guys have seen some of the videos I've been doing with Bob, and kind of give you a rundown of how the NectarFam products work. Bob invited us down here to talk about how to really get this summed up in a commercial sense of how to use Nectar for the Gods, how to use Cultured, how to use Fullon, how to incorporate commercial organics.
At scale.
At scale. At scale. Not just hand feeding, not just making sure your 4 plants are happy, healthy, and delicious, but making sure that you make a commercial product that makes your business money. 2, that actually makes it is different than what everybody else is selling. And 3, just how to change things up a bit compared to everybody else using all the salt and synthetic products. So that's me.
Cool. And then we got a guy that actually is doing this.
Yes.
Tell us about yourself. Pig farmer, whatever you want to call me. I work for Heroes of the Farm, and I'm one of their gardeners. We got a really good team, and I don't by any means feel like I know anything yet. I'm a student of the plant. Learning every day, and every crop is like a new surfboard.
We're all a student of you, so.
Yeah, just kind of learn to watch the plant and see how it reacts. And nectar has always been like what I looked for, and I found it like 6 years ago, and no intentions of trying anything different.
Nice.
Rob, they tell you that on Instagram, you won't change?
These guys are trying to get it.
I'm Rob Christiansen. I'm the president of Grow Switch, and we made Fullon, which is the organic nanoionic biostimulant that works both with salts, but also works exceedingly well in an organic environment with nectar, just helping to really kind of improve the efficiency. We also help the bacteria cultures in the soil, but it's really a good tie-in, especially what we're finding with the commercial guys. I'm honored that you're running our product along with Nectar. Always honored to be here with the NectarFam. So, but yeah, it's a product that goes with basically any nutrient schedule, but we see some real huge gains in the organics. I'm a fan of organics. I've been using cannabis since I've been 12. So for me, a lot of it is about the quality of what we produce as opposed to the quantity. And obviously we're in a damn competitive market. So I'll talk about that later, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Tim, why don't you start us off using Nectar, using Cultured, using Fullon in a little bigger scale? What's the big picture of that?
Yeah, well, let's start with what most people are using right now. I come from the state of Colorado where organics is not really a thing. It is in a very, very small, selective individuals. For example, Alpine Stash kills it. Shout out Danny, out in Colorado. But for the most part, the main idea is to pump your plants full of these nitrates, phosphates, get as much salt as you can to get the biggest buds that taste like cardboard. And that's generally how people go about it. People have this weird misconception of that organics can't yield, that organics doesn't grow plants that fast, that you have to use synthetics if you want to have a commercial operation. And that's just not fucking true. It's very important that we all understand that technology is catching up with organics to where synthetics have been for the past decade or a couple decades ago. So in general, this main discussion is going to revolve around how do we use Nectar for the Gods, a liquid, natural, liquid, organic product in a commercial sense. I come from the world of microbes, I come from the world of chemistry, so my understanding is that before, yes, you had to use amendments, you had to use non-broken down plants and animal byproducts in order to let it sit for however many days, however many months to let it break down, then the plants can take it up. But the beauty of these new products and the beauty of what Scott has done with Nectar and what Rob's done with Fullon, what we've done with Cultured, is kind of taking organics to a new level. In a commercial sense, you need to have an efficient garden. You need to make sure your labor costs are reduced. You need to make sure that your end product is competitive with everybody else's. And what I have found, and what many others have found, like Heroes of the Farm and such, is that we can actually get better growth rate, just as good if not better growth rates with organics and with the general understanding of how to use this. So with that being said, there's a different mentality here. It's not just let's put an ionic substance inside the root zone, let plants take it up immediately, and then you get big buds. Yeah, there's a couple different ideas here, starting with you're going to put food in your soils, you're going to put food in your plants, but it's not just for the plant itself, it's also for the soil. So the first and foremost thing, we need to feed the plants, for example, Nectar for the Gods. So take bone meal, for example. If you just top dress or put bone meal inside your soil, it's going to take 6 weeks, 9 weeks, up to 12 weeks to break down, probably even up to 6 months to be completely available for plant uptake. The science and the technology we have now is digesting all these organic substances into an immediately available product, where half of what you put in, just generally speaking, half of what you put in, like with your nectar feeds, are going to be taken up by the plant. It's going to react with the root zone, it's going to take it up to the plant, and you're going to have very good growth rate, but you're also going to have some residual left over. This is why we incorporate microbes into the general spectrum of things, because after it goes into your soil, the plant takes what it's going to take up, it's going to bond to the soil, you're going to put beneficial microbes back into the soil, and then you're going to have those microbes re-break down everything so the plant can fully metabolize everything. So first and foremost, you don't have to use salts to grow a commercial product. You can use things like Nectar for the Gods that are already pre-digested and pre-broken up. And this is the number one thing why our technology has caught up with these synthetics, and why you can get better growth rates with Nectar for the Gods than you can with other competitor salt products. The next thing is that everybody thinks compost teas are super freaking hard, super complicated, they're time consuming, they stink, they require you to clean. If you don't clean it, then you have leftover bacterial colonies that then cause further problems down the road and contaminating other broods. So what we at Cultured Biologix wanted to do is give you a commercially viable compost tea, something that isn't, you don't have to spend 24 to 48 hours to wait for it to become active and available and put into the soil at that point. You don't have to clean. So we want to bring, compost teas that are easy, simple, and ready to use. So, for example, we have instant compost teas that you put in the water, they come alive, you pour it out. There's no mix, there's no waiting, there's no sitting. We made these compost teas so they can be commercially viable, so you can have microbes in your soil whenever you want them. You don't have to brew them. And like Pig Farmer can tell you, brewing anything is not commercially viable. It's not even close to to the time frame that you need to get it out. It's not even close to the labor cost that you need to reduce. And overall, all these organic inputs that you have to steep inside steep poop inside water and then have the molasses being added to it takes too much time and too much effort. So we made a commercially viable compost tea that can be ready to use instantly. So there isn't waiting with Nectar and Cultured. There isn't having to hand feed. There isn't having to use everything the slowest way possible, and you actually get better growth rates when you put the two together. So the whole concept is, how do we use natural inputs and still get just as good, if not better, growth rates as you can with synthetics, but still have a better quality product? Because in a market where everybody's trying to beat each other up over price, you need to have a better, the only way you can get a better price for is having, a better quality product. And the only way you can get better profit in a commercial sense is to make sure that your labor costs and making sure that your input costs are reduced. So we find that you can reduce input costs by using Fullon. We find that you can reduce your labor costs by using sturricanes and using other already pre-digested nutrients in order to feed the plant and to feed the soil and then get the uptake you need. So my concept is using the most available, digested, technologically advanced products called Nectar for the Gods in a commercial sense, through dosatrons, through mixing up giant reservoirs and sending it on out.
Yeah. So what would you say are the specific advantages of using this as far as with your end product?
One, you get the first best advantage is the taste of the product, the quality. You can use any synthetic line you want, and you can use all these artificial sugars, and all your flour is going to taste the same. It's mostly the taste of cardboard. Most of your product is going to be, yes, crystally, yes, it's going to be big, but you elongate the cell wall, so you cause weaker plants. With Nectar and with Cultured, we build proteins, we build cells, we build strong, sturdy plants. We build plants that are healthy, that can naturally resist, have a resistance against the pest. It's not going to completely eliminate pest pressure, but it's going to help when you're trying to combat pest pressure. So the number one thing we see is that we get better quality product, we get better quality plants, better, healthier plants. And with that being said, when you're using all this together, the Cultured, the Fullon, the Nectar, you have an actually efficient organic regimen that you can put on 4 plants. You can put on 1,000 plants and still get just as good a quality as you are if you're a hobbyist grower in your closet. And you can actually have a product at the end that can compete, that can outcompete all your competitors.
Okay. So let's get into it then, the challenges of doing this and how we overcome those. What are because obviously you're working kind of one plant at a time with this sort of thing. What are the challenges of using this over having kind of an automated type, salty type system?
Some challenges?
Yeah.
Some of the challenges, making sure that you have the right pH, you're in the right pH zone. Making sure you have the right part per million feeding your plants. Because as Pivot Farmer is going to tell you, some of these plants are super fucking hungry. And you can't satiate it with just the baseline feed. You have to understand and be able to read your plant. So we do, slurry tests. And do slurry tests in a commercial sense.
We do slurry tests twice a week in every zone.
Right.
Once a week, minimally.
So
log the data so we know where our plants are eating or they're not eating.
So when you started off with this, did you just start off with 1 or 2 plants, or did you go dive right into it?
I had a 12-light garden at the time, so there wasn't a lot of plants. I mean, it was like.
So what did you find? What were the things that you came up against, and how you got through those?
What you mean?
Well, when you first started, what were you working with before you went to Nectar?
Age-old organics. Yep, that was like 6 years ago, I suppose. I just got in like a year before it switched over to Nectar when it's harvesting organics, and it was everything I was always looking for. Was I like the control of the bottles, and you know, I've tried the organic soil amendments. There's no control, especially when you get different strains that eat different. I mean, I know you can grow great organic herb that way, but on a scale, and if you're trying to grow different genetics, like I need more control than hoping the plant eats everything that's in that pot by the end of the 65 days or whatever we're running.
So I guess the disadvantage of having to work one plant at a time has kind of become your advantage, because you can work one plant at a time with
strain specific more. I mean, like now we're in big rooms of one strain, you know, so it's still, we can tailor stuff a little bit easier that way.
So how's the whole thing work? I mean, you don't have to go into detail, but what have you found with using this? How have you, what were some challenges you came up against, and how did you overcome those? For someone that's thinking about doing this, starting out with it.
Well, on a home grower scale, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of challenge to it other than getting the bottles mixed up and getting it on the plants, you know. On a commercial scale, the challenge is the labor, you know. That's why a lot of people are still growing salts, in my opinion, is they don't really care if they're shooting for a different benchmark, I guess.
Right.
Like at Heroes of the Farm, we're trying to grow the best possible cannabis that we can. For one, we've always tried to do that, and with the market the way it is, we don't want to change what we love, and we don't expect the people to like get a lesser product. So I mean, that's the challenge now, is like finding ways to use this product because it's so thick, you know, like you can't feed it through lines. I mean, I'm sure we're working on ways to do this, but
so you're hand watering every plant?
Yeah, I mean, hand watering, and that costs the farm labor, you know, and the bigger the farm, the more labor you have at hand watering. And I mean, at our farm, I mean, I would suspect a good amount of the payroll goes to just hand watering plants. And you know, with any plant that gets watered on our farm, it gets lifted and handled, and the nutrients put on there. It's not a machine pumping it from here to there, and you're hoping they're all eating the same and drinking the same. There's more labor to it.
So have you found some ways to get around that, or do you just work harder?
We're finding ways, you know, now with the new market and everything, it's kind of progressing. I've been a grower all my life. I've never been a business. I've never even thought about that. Now it's like, I see the real shit that's like the real obstacles we got to cross over, and like the Sturricane buckets, you know, we just got those up and running a few days ago, but man, I like just being around the buckets, like I get a good feeling, you know. It's like I wish I would have had this 5 years ago.
You know, like rolling 5-gallon buckets?
Pat and the company so much labor. Yeah, we might all get a little bit lazier, but we're trying to do, you know, we can mix a 250-gallon mixer now in like 5 minutes versus 20 minutes. That's 2 guys in every zone every day. That shit adds up. Yeah, it adds up. And that's one of the things we never thought about when we were all small scale, is like efficiency. Why does that matter? When the price of the pounds are high, you know, it's like money covered efficiency then, you know, it's like when that money isn't there.
You guys don't work for it?
When we're desperate. But yeah, I'd say that's the biggest obstacle, you know, is the sheer thickness of the goodies going in there, you know?
Sure. I would say a big obstacle for just organic gardening alone is it's going back to the whole hoping the plant eats everything inside the pot. If you have a bad batch of soil, a bad batch of super soil or whatever, you plant into it, you're stuck with it.
Yeah.
You have no control.
ppms at the beginning and at the end, and it's like,
yeah,
you smoke some of that crap.
Right, you have no control over it. You can't decrease or increase inputs during the stage. Plants do different shit when they're rooting, different shit when they're in veg, and different shit when they're in bloom. So like, the main struggle with organics is being able to have control over what you're doing, and I find Nectar, I'm sure you find Nectar is very controllable.
And then once you figure it out, it's very easy. Once it clicks in your brain and you know what every tool in the box does, it's like you got everything you need.
I guess that's the thing for someone new to it is how did you get there? What do you know, I guess that's right there.
I mean, still like, you know, there's so many variables I feel like I've learned a lot, but just touching the tip of the iceberg on learning here, you know, it's like 6 years and I still learn things every day, and that's why it's kind of hard to like come do a show like this.
Yeah.
Everything I've thought I've learned and relearned, and it's a never-ending involvement. And it's like a surfboard, you know. It's like Pat calls it freestyle gardening. That's the best I've heard. It's like, if you're not freestyling it, you're fucking something up.
So do you feel like you're experimenting with your whole farm, or do you have this, the test gardens and things like that, or what do you?
I've had the luxury of running a smaller medical garden where I got just 6 light rooms. So where I got to my point was testing, and it was easy to test. I know I had 6 light rooms and strains I've grown. It's you know, like when I got his full on, it's easy to put that in one room's mixer and feed them plants and see how they react differently to the plants not getting it. And it's just, that's how I got to where I'm at. It's just trial and error and testing.
Would you start off with just the basics and move into more bottles as you go?
Yeah, and that's what Scott always recommends, you know, is like make it simple. Because you can, you know, especially if you're new, getting 13 bottles of stuff, you're going to be overwhelmed. You know, get the stuff that you need and just learn as you go. Learn those products and then learn how your new products alter what you're doing, I guess. And as you go, you kind of learn more of like what you want out of your garden. You know, like, I know when I first started growing cannabis, I just wanted some flowers. I didn't really care if they figured it out and tasted it. Kind of depends on what you're after.
Do you feel it throughout the grow as you're doing it, or one run over the next run kind of thing, or I guess a little of both? How does that go? As you're growing, like you go out there and you water some stuff in today, you see some results from that and take note of what's going on? Or?
I feel like with Nectar, you know, like I can see within 3 to 4 days a reaction. Like if I've got low pH and I've fed high, I can see like if my slurries are going to be high or low. You know, I can just.
You have to care about what you're doing if you're going to run the product line.
Yeah.
And if you're just automating, you want to turn a dial, you want 6 guys that just do their thing for 20 minutes and go to take a break, then run automation and salts. But if you want to actually be a part of that garden and that farm, that's why guys like Pig, that's why guys like Heroes and Pat, they step it to this new level because they want to see these plants do what they do, and they do things to see how they change. So Nectar farms are different breeds of people because they give a crap about what they're doing, and they want to see it get better and better. Everybody else is growing Marlboro Reds.
I've tried to get the best of everything. I've tried everything out there. Nothing even, I can't find anything that holds a candle to it.
Because you care.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that the NectarFam in general, from everybody I come in contact with, that's a common thread between all of us.
We all belong in a home.
We give a damn about the finished product, whether you know cannabis or if it's gardens like Jake does with peppers and berries and stuff like that. We honestly care about the end product as opposed to sitting there looking at digits in a bank account, which obviously we all need to some degree. But the main emphasis is what are we producing at the end of the day.
Especially the ecosystem and outdoor growing.
Right.
That's a big one.
Yep. You get runoff. The runoff is a huge fucking thing. I mean, nitrates and phosphate runoff.
Yep.
See, they shut down the intercoastal of Florida because there's so much nitrate and phosphate runoff and algae blooms.
Yep.
You see water tables that are laden with nitrates and phosphates. You see all of these synthetic products that have no carbon base to them, and Nectar is carbon based from animal inputs. So you're actually adding to the soil, not taking away from the environment. You're adding to the environment. And I think one of the biggest things is making sure that we as a community, when we are growing medical cannabis, medicinal cannabis, where people really do have cancer and people do have ailments, you can't give people shit. You can't feed them bad produce. You can't feed them chemically PGR laden flowers that are supposed to be healing them. It's a responsibility for us to make sure we give a fuck.
Yep. There's always going to be that element that doesn't.
Of course.
85% of that would be that element. Let's get that 5%. That's all right.
Exactly.
But don't call it medicine though. That's my thing.
No.
If you're growing with PGR, you're growing with salt, don't call it medicine. You can call it recreational bullshit, whatever you want to call it. Don't call it medicine though. You have to give a fuck to create medicine. If you're gonna make medicine, it better be medicinal.
Tell that's Big Pharma.
I've been trying, trust me.
Call this medicine. Yeah, okay.
16 different side effects. Might kill you.
It might kill you.
So, what have you found using the Fullon? You've been working with a little bit, right?
Yep, I started it probably, 9 months ago now, probably? So I've had a lot of 10 different crops maybe with it. And I found that, before, I think with Nectar, the more I feed my plants, after regenerating, it's like they've gotten to this point where they're just eating me out of house and home, and I'm just feeding so much Medusas and Gaia. I like to try to feed them enough, and it helped me bring back my levels of Gaia and Medusa down to like a value that is close to the food chart, you know, where I'm actually getting enough nutrition in the plant that's not eating everything in the
So where do you think that was going?
to the buds.
Yeah. So this has just made them more efficient where they can think it was a little less?
Yeah, it's made the everything just like a little bit more potent, I guess, you know, like to the plant. It's giving it more uptake. I mean, I can see the density of the flower is harder, but I mean, like I told him yesterday when he was up to the Heroes Farm, you know, it's like I'm running it because the flavor. I mean, the minerals in there, it's like I get a deep, complex flavor, and it's a whole nother layer of flavor in there, you know. I mean, and that's, I guess, part of the reason of like where I've gotten to this level is like I'm never satisfied. I've smoked some good pot before, and it's like
You can always get better.
You always think there's always better. And it's, if we stop trying new things, and you know, it's like no matter how good it is, it ain't good enough. We want it to get better.
Did you have anything, Rob, as far as?
No, to me, it's huge. You know what I mean? That when we get someone like Big that says, you know, critical, honest, you know, always striving for better, and when you get someone of this caliber that says, you know what, this did add to what exactly what I was looking for, and to a large
more depth, even.
Exactly. Yeah.
No matter how much deeper nectar already is in the salt, put that on there and get a little bit deeper.
And you know, we found the same. Springfield store just did. They're doing a side-by-side thanks to Forrest and Jake getting them going. But they just did the first pull on some cherry tomatoes, and I think it was like 51 grams.
Yeah, the control was 51 grams, and then the full-on was 121 grams on the first harvest.
Right. So, but again, perhaps the best part was what you guys produced is the finished product. The difference between the two.
Oh yeah, the full-on one just had that kind of crispness of the tomato, kind of like those tomatoes when you cut your knife through it, and it has that crispness, it doesn't smush. And the control just had that little bit more of that smush feel.
Didn't you guys do blind taste testing too?
Yeah.
So what do you mean tomatoes doesn't taste like water?
Yeah, exactly.
Weird.
But honestly, I mean, that's kind of where we as a company, like I say, I'm a huge fan of this plant. You know, I've lived on it pretty much. But it's when we can take that flower, that product, and make it that much better, where people recognize the difference and come back and say, that's why I'm using it. To me, it's a huge compliment, and it's what we're all about. It's not just producing more of the same shit. It's moving that ball forward, getting the quality better, nutrient density goes up, and with those increased terpene profiles, it's obviously healthier because we're bringing out some of those elements in there that, you know, weren't that strong. So, no, I'm thrilled to be working in this environment, and it's truly an honor to be doing what we're doing to that 5% of the market.
Yeah.
So,
Questions? Yeah, let's go to questions for a while.
I don't know, I'm sorry if I don't know this. I don't know how Fullon differs from normal fulvic acids, like full power or whatever. I have foliar with full power. I know there's a lot of full power and other humics in Nectar already, so I don't want to get any leaf twists. How do they differ, and is there a way to overdo it? Or is it easy to overdo it?
God damn it!
Great question. Great question. Actually, first, you can't. If you overdo it, you're basically wasting money. You can put full on 100% on the plant tissue.
So you won't be leaf
It will not burn.
But this is not full power.
No,
You just
and you
poorly named it.
that was my son. I would have known full power was on there.
So much
I never would have called it full on, because that's the first thing that people think. Not only is it similar, but you're an asshole that robbed another guy. Right? You know what I mean? You're one of these dipshits that bought something, put a different name on it, watered it down, and you know, no. It's actually, and full power is a great product, no doubt about it. Full on is a recipe, a biostimulant. We've got literally every mineral on the face of the earth in nano form. It's highly ionic. Sometimes in the right environment, you open the cap and you actually get a shock on it. So it contains a lot of energy, and it's doing a lot, and I guess the best word is efficiency in terms of what it does to the plant in getting it to not only uptake the nutrients, but getting it to be able to utilize and turn those nutrients into cell division like that. So what happens is, that's why we believe you're getting a lot better terp profiles, higher bricks, because the plant can naturally develop that as opposed to working to try and assimilate and utilize the nutrients. So it's a great product to use alongside full power. It's definitely...
On some level, it does kind of the same things in a different way.
In a different fashion, exactly. And so much of it is everything working in symmetry in the soil or in the media. We don't have any microbes, but yet we're a great food source for the colonies. We tend to help multiply the colonies. So it's everything, and really getting that efficiency in that root zone and the efficiency in that plant being able to work 24/7 to do what it has to do. And that's another difference between the salts I see. I mean, you're pretty much in a sterile, dead environment in a lot of cases, the plants are. Where in an organic, I mean, things are working down there, you know what I mean? You've got microbial friends that are kicking ass to helping that plant to absorb and really get things going.
And if I can make it more specific about the microbes, I've been using Fullon for almost 6 months now, off and on, but I've been doing my own tests, and it makes the soil more microbially active.
Yep,
I see better processing from the microbes, better rooting. I see better uptake in general. When I scope my products, and I scope, you know, I do a soil test, I do just plain diluting my microbes, not diluted with Fullon, and let them sit for 24 hours to see how they multiply, see how they do their thing. I put it under a scope and I do my dyes, and I can see more activity. I mean, not more bacteria, but I see more activity, I see more exchange, I see more things involved underneath my scope. So after using like something like grain-fed worm castings, and I can tell what a baseline is, and I add Fullon, and I can see microbes be more active. I'm not sure if that's the ionic activity, I'm not sure if that's the rocks that they're just breaking down even faster, having more food sources, but it just seems to make your microbials pop that much faster.
Awesome.
No, absolutely. Sorry, go on.
Sorry. Cation exchange capacity. So Fullon really improves that, enlivens your soil, feeds the small creatures too. They can use food. But there's something I don't know about yet is the cation exchange capacity and getting your soil all active and all the ionic bonding and all that stuff. Is that something that if it's active, it gives the microbiotic creatures more area to go live into rather than having it. So it's kind of boosting. Not only they get to use it for food, but they also it gives it more homes, everything space to fill into.
Everything inside the soil is based off electricity. Okay? All living things are based off electricity, based on ions exchanging. The cation exchange capacity inside our soil is the cations going from the soil into the plant through the root exudates. So what I've found, I've seen, and what other people have seen is that we get better CEC transmission. We get better reactivity inside the soil. We see things, just life itself, just generating pop. So I won't ever not use Fullon at this point. So I mean, I'm in it. So
can you tell? Sorry. Subtilis, can you tell the difference between subtilis and Bonemeal, different bacteria? Do you have the ability to see which bacteria are which?
A lot of them are gram-positive bacteria. So when we do our dyes or we see them under a scope, we just see the general bugs in there. So unless you do a DNA sequencing, you're not going to know if it's Bonemeal growing, if it's subtilis, or it's a Pseudomonas or whatnot. So it's not generally specific to species of bacteria. More or less, you see the whole genus of bacteria. You see all the gram-positive bacteria multiply faster. So it's just the consortia that you're putting there. So you have to understand, it's not about one bacteria doing this or one bacteria doing that. It's all of them working together as a synergy and working with the soils, working with the foods, working with the substrate, working with the little fibers of the cocoa fibers of the soil itself. So it's just a general populace of the bacteria increasing.
If I understood you correctly, you were talking about running culture through dosatron. I was recently at a living soil event where people were talking about how running biology under pressure and drip lines can adversely affect the biology. And I was wondering if there's anything you do to mitigate that, or?
Yes, absolutely. So when I say we want to make microbes in a more commercial sense, there's two different forms that you really see microbes exist in. You see them as living cultures. You take your worm castings, you take your compost, you steep them in water, and then with some sugar, and in 24 hours they multiply. So you're taking a living complex of bacteria, and then you're soaking them in a carbohydrate source and growing that living culture into multiple. What happens is they create a biofilm, and it's just strands of bacteria that develop inside this reservoir. When you put that under pressure, or you put that going through a piston irrigation or pressure irrigation, you see that it ruptures the membranes of the bacteria, ruptures the biofilm, ruptures everything you just created. So what I did as the formulator going into making these products, I want something commercially viable, so we can't start living cultures. Instead, we start with what we call endospores, which are the seeds of bacteria, or the seeds of fungi, or the spores, which are the seeds of fungi. And these aren't, when they're in the dry product, they're dormant. These spores can travel through comets in space and land on another planet. They can go under vacuum, they can go under pressure, they can go under high heat, they can withstand, these seeds of the bacteria can withstand a pH of 4.0 up to 9.0 and still germinate once the conditions are right. So the way we kind of, because you're right, the living cultures will break apart and living cultures will die. But if you use the seeds of bacteria, the endospores, they can go through this pressurized system, get deposited in the soil, and when they get deposited in the soil, that's when they wake up and grow. So when I say you can use an endosperm, because we're using the seeds of bacteria, not living cultures of them. They're the dormant forms of bacteria. So we made a version of a compost tea that goes dormant, and then within 1 hour to 24 hours inside your soil, all of these seeds of bacteria start to wake up, and that's when the biofilm is created in your soil. So
is that 24 hours also about the life it's going to have in a reservoir?
Yeah, well, it depends. Some of these bacteria are anaerobic. Right. Anaerobic bacteria exist without CO2, so you can leave them in water for a week, 2 weeks, only they have a food source, they'll stay alive and reproduce. A lot of these bacteria inside compost, or like in worm castings, are aerobic. They require oxygen. So if you let them sit inside stagnant water for 24 to 40 hours, they're gonna die. They're gonna become food for other organisms that aren't necessarily good or aren't necessarily bad, could be bad, and cause root rot issues. So the general aspect of it depends on the microbes themselves, but for the most part, anything you're going to be using as far as Cultured Biologix is concerned about is going to be put into your soil and wake up there, and they're going to use the oxygen or the CO2 inside your soil, and that's how they're going to grow and live.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, Trish.
I hope it's relevant for cation exchange and everything else, bacteria. I never really have seen a NectarFam, quote unquote, bokashi. You know, or not bokashi, the Biochar, thank you. I just happen to use a green grow one or recycle my soil stuff. Do you guys use anything else? Do you like biochar or hate it or anything else?
It depends on the biochar. Carbon's really good at sequestering nitrogen. So if you don't activate and you don't properly prepare the biochar, it's going to cause a detriment to your soil, and you're probably going to see a nitrogen deficiency. With green grow specifically, the way they do with the earth shine is they activate it and they ferment it. Right. So it's already charged, it's already active, it's already microbially fermented, so it has so it's not going to steal things from your soil. It's actually going to add some porosity. It's going to add some little homes for your bacteria and help recharge your soil. So as far as the NectarFam product, the Earth Shine is my go-to biochar product, specifically because it's made right, and I know Mark from Green Grow knows how he's culturing his biochar. So it depends on the biochar. Make sure you find an activated or a fermented biochar to make sure it's...
Do people actually also use it? Like, for example, at scale, do you use biochar, or do you feel it's not necessary?
Biochar on the Easy Tea Bloom?
No, I don't use any biochar.
No, I don't use any biochar.
There's some people at scale that recycles their soil in a commercial sense. So when you recycle, you want to add the activated biochar to the soil. It helps add a carbon complex to the soil, because plants eat carbon, believe it or not. Like, there's 17 nutrients, 17 elements that the plant takes up. Carbon's one of them. So it's adding carbon back to the soil that could be depleted of said carbon and help reinvigorate it with life and help reinvigorate it with a carbon source.
So what would you be doing if you're recycling the soil? What would you be putting in there?
If I'm recycling soil?
Yeah.
Well, first I'd recharge it with some food, because the plant's going to take everything out of the soil that you have because you're in a container pot. So first off, the one shot that Scott made is my all-time favorite dry amendment ever. It helps recharge the soil. It gives some type of bone meal structure to it. It gives, he uses the calcite too, so it helps add some buffering capacity to it, and just helps put nutrition back into your soil. The next thing I use is I want to make sure all the dead roots are broken down and make sure they're returned back to their the normal state, which is like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, etc. So I used some type of kashi product.
Take the massive roots out, but the roots
take the main stalk, take the main mass out, but you're going to have root hairs, you're going to have root fibers, and a little secondary, tertiary roots are still going to be in there. So I like to use like a kashi to kind of finish breaking that down, something that has a dry fermented material that has the bacteria that's going to break things down. The next thing I use is the earth shine, just because I want to replace the carbon. I want to help add to the activity of the soil itself. Do that, let it sit for 14, depending on how active your soil is before, depending how much was in your soil before, depending how much root mass is there. It's anywhere from 14 to 60 days to let your soil sit to recycle itself.
But that whole process is too much labor for here's the farm, and you just toss it and start over?
No, we're starting to reuse our soil.
No, they recycle.
Definitely.
We've done crops where we've gone a full year in the same soil, and then we re-amend the beds. We've done re-amending, leaving, actually just pulling the original root ball off plant. We've done a bunch of different stuff. And this year, we're re-amending a couple 100 yards of dirt that we'll be re-amending in one side of our facility, and then everything else in our greenhouse is going to the beds. We will do pots in the indoor for convenience, but from a scale point, farmers don't abandon their fields. They reuse it, they re-amend it. You look at your dirt, you work your dirt. Over years, it becomes better. So if you're just abandoning it and because you're using coke or something like that, that's really not the way to go about it by any means. So
it gets better too. The soil gets better every round. And what we're working on right now, what we're implementing is a recharge pack that will have your biochar in the top of your remineralization. I mean, it's going to be a recharge pack that one bag will treat 1 pallet worth of medium. And so that'll be something you can just throw out and re-amend and then reuse on the next cycle.
But when you look at the scale of that, you can save about, if you look at pots, labor, and soil, you can save $5,000 to $6,000 per greenhouse per run. We have 9 greenhouses that pull out at least 3 crops per year. So that's quickly like a couple $100,000 in savings. Not to mention your employees like it when they're not breaking their backs. So it's definitely one of those things that you want to use every day you can.
Yeah, that's commercial sense. I have to in my beds. I cover them with a winter crop and then put 1 shot on them. Yeah, there's other things.
You had a question?
Yeah, you singled out the bone meal product as something that could be, let's say in a microbe-sparse environment, take forever to break down. Give me some specifics about when the microbes are added in proper, what sort of time frames we're talking about?
Well, the really cool process that Scott does is that he takes a process that usually takes 3 months to make bone meal available and makes it readily available right now. Then he pairs it with a gum, and so the gum goes in your soil and it bonds the cow phos to your soil. The microbes then, if you use a compost tea once a week, it's plenty enough to get the fresh microbes in there to break it down. So once you put the bone meal in there, and then you do a feed, a lot of people do a feed tea. And that tea day is when the microbes go in there and finish processing and breaking down all the bone meal and making it re-available to the plant. You top dress with any type of kasha, or you top dress it all with any type of microbial product that will also aid in breaking down the gum, breaking apart the cow phos. You have to understand, calcium and phosphorus loves to bond to each other at 6.0 to 7.0. So that's why we don't like to let the nectar reservoir sit, because then it reacts, because calcium is highly reactive, and it reacts and then turns it into an insoluble form. Then you're going to put the insoluble form in there into your soil, or it's going to turn insoluble inside your, or part of it's going to turn insoluble in your soil. Then you have the microbes that remetabolize and redigest that. So as long as you're using a compost tea pretty much once a week, you can maintain the fluidity, you can maintain the cycle of the cow phos being broken apart and being made available again to the plant. It's like teas are technically like a second feeding, or another feeding for your plant, because the microbes are going to go to town, re-release all this, and it's going to be taken back up into the plant a little bit more efficiently. That?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Questions?
So what I'm hearing you say is you put it into your feeding, your Fullon, instead of just foliar feed?
Yeah, we don't foliar feed a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we do.
If you're hand watering, I understand. You're already got your hands on the plant.
I mean, he expresses foliar feeding stuff, and the problem is it's just like more labor hours.
I've got it.
Foliar feeding goes toward IPO and other things, so to try and get the nutrients to the plants from the
Yeah, we were going to use dirt tape, but now we've created to allow us to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could you give me a quick breakdown on what's in Fullon and specifically address each thing that's in it and what it does? What's the purpose?
It's obviously a lot, some of it's proprietary, but we've got a number of things in there. We've got fish proteins, there's surfactants in there, a little bit of sugars in there. One of the main things, there's citrus terpenes in there. One of the main components is a mineral matrix that we use. And there's literally like 76 different minerals in here in nano-ionic form. And it's really the synergy and the working between all these components that it's really the magic in it. It's not any one single component that does it. We happen to put something together, it's got a lot of energy, and in the form that it takes, it creates a lot of different reactions in a lot of different plants.
I understand the purposes of a surfactant in foliar application, but in root application, what's the purpose?
Some of the surfactants are also contain other elements that work in the soil to help the absorption. There's naturally occurring PGRs in there from kelp and things like that. So it's not a high level of surfactants. There's also terpenes. We find that the terpenes work well in the soil to break down some of the fats and proteins that the plants are not easily able to break down on their own. So, like I said, there's a lot of different stuff going on in that recipe that causes a lot of different reactions.
And a lot of those surfactants too that helps bond those minerals to the medium itself to give it a long-lasting food source for your microbial fields, your fungal fields, and the mineral access. I mean, the number one thing with most soils, most farm fields, most of the agriculture across this country is we demineralize our land, and that's why we don't grow good food.
Exactly.
So, and even in our nutrition and on all these shelves out here, it's NPK driven. That's how we drive everything. It's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Nobody's looking at the broad spectrum of minerals. We've looked at it. Mineral Matrix and Green Air used to make a product that was very similar but not nearly as active, and then these guys come out with this nanotech. That stuff is available. It's Mineral Matrix that's ready now. So it's remineralizing every time you water in, and plants love the minerals and the metals, and that it's just a huge part of the plant's health.
No, thank you, Scott. And I think that contributes to what Pig Farmer's saying, what Forrest is saying in terms of the difference in the end quality. That you're right. I mean, everything in the world basically is mineral deficient. In terms of
we all put azomite and accelerate and all these mineral clays into our soils because that's a great buffer for all of us to get more minerals. But even you put as much azomite you want in the soil, you're getting 1% or 3 in a cycle. So you put 10 pounds in, you're not getting anything out of that. I mean, your mycorrhiza, your bacteria from culture is going to get there and break some of that down. His is done. This is the same with our bone meal. It's ready now. The plants can access it. They react to it, and anything that isn't used will then react in the soil. So it's just another pre-digested, ready to go without being digested, just nanotech.
And at that same extent, the reason why you get a better flavor, you get floral flavor, because it's pulling down the heavy metals, the things that shouldn't be in the flowers, and pushing up the elements that need to be there to give you the complex of flavors.
And I think that's like the biggest point. I mean, there's a lot of great things about Fullon, but I think just as a flushing agent for anyone who running house and garden, anybody using Canon nutrients, anybody who's using our line, it's pulling out that end result so you don't get that weird metallic aftertaste or that bitter, burning flavor. And it does it. It enhances that the edge of the sweetness and brings out the terpenes.
So aren't those metals inside a plant at that point, a lot of them as being toxic are positively charged because it's chelated, the mineral matrix in there is negatively charged. There's ionic bonding, so it goes into the plant, it attaches itself to the positive charge, and then it flushes it out.
It tracks it out from the root. I don't think it goes up and back, I think it just drags out.
Yeah, if you were to dedicate one stage of growth for Fullon, I mean, listening to the product, I was thinking flushing, the ripening. Would that be when you would want the most to use that product?
Gosh, so much depends on the genetics, the environment. I mean, I've got guys that swear by it for clones that from other plants. They're just popping increase in cut rates like crazy. Other people swear by it in veg, and other guys swear by it in flower a lot, and flush obviously. But it's a product you can use all the way from popping seeds all the way through your flush. And so much. And again, every environment, every plant, it's going to do something. It's going to help those plants express their potential in a lot of different ways.
Let's not forget that like enzymes and compounds that the plant needs to, like organic compounds that the plant needs to produce, the hormones, the enzymes, all the proteins and things, they require trace metals. They require trace elements in order to form these compounds. So you don't have enzymatic reactions unless you have the plant full of trace minerals. And that's why like even like giving your mother plants full on and then taking cuttings, your cuttings are better because it has the precursors it needs to send all the compounds down to the stem where you cut to produce the new root tips.
Exactly. And those metals are also facilitate the energy exchange.
Exactly.
And if you don't have a Quest dehumidifier, then you're just screwed. Oh, hey, it's
Hold on a second. Come here. Come here.
You guys can't sound kind of standing.
You're late.
Were there any other questions?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I was just going to touch up on basically essentially what you guys were just discussing, but I see how Fullon and Culture could kind of benefit each other in the sense that, like, if there is any nutrients that aren't soluble available, then the microbes could go in, and as well, since they're getting that mineral matrix, it's going to increase their efficiency to solubilize those materials, so they're kind of working in tandem, and then as those materials are being produced either by the decomposition of the microbials or solubilization, wouldn't the cation exchange increase is making sure that those nutrients can be uptaken at a quicker rate as well. So they're kind of getting that symbiotic relationship of giving you food for the microbes to break down the insolubles, which then bond together through cation exchange to be able to exchange at a higher rate up into the plant. So that's kind of...
Precisely.
That was a statement.
Yes. You like statements?
What's your answer? He's overwhelmed.
To add on to that taboo statement, the zinc, the iron, the manganese, these trace elements that plant needs in small amounts, well, bacteria need that too.
Yep.
So Fullon benefits the culturing of other bacteria because the bacteria need to have the zinc, needs to have the manganese in order to have some type of reaction to grow even into bigger bacterial cultures.
Right.
So yeah, totally, they totally synergize with one another, facilitate that process, and then make all the things inside, all your food inside the soil go up into the plant more efficiently. Like I said, it's about being more efficient and effective, which is efficacy, being more efficacious.
And making sure that all the nutrients that aren't available become bioavailable and utilized in the plant.
100%. Yep. Jake?
Tim, have you seen bacteria? So some of the things that research have found are that bacteria will perform something called adsorption on certain molecules. A new word for me, but instead of absorption going inside, it creates a crust and kind of gathers on the outside of the molecule, and supposedly really boosts. So it'll build there, it'll boost these colonies by not only being food but being a home, but there's a bunch of synergistic things that happen. Is that something that you have seen with the bacteria and with the Fullon, not just making the colonies bigger, but actually seeing adsorption happen?
Yeah, there's a process called mineralization and immobilization that the bacteria do. So when the bacteria consume metals and the bacteria consumes organic compounds, they internalize it within themselves, then they excrete it. And the little bits that they excrete is called mineralization. But then when the bacteria die, because it's a living death process, when the bacteria die, it re-releases a bioavailable form that then gets absorbed and taken up and facilitated by the bacteria to be put into the plant. So yeah, no, absolutely. Awesome. That's why when I do microscope slides and I look at gram stains and I do my own bioassays, my own analysis of Fullon and culture being paired together. That's why you see the boost in microbial activity, whether it be larger colonies, whether it be more rigorous colonies, or what have you. You see a boost in activity from the microorganisms and then immobilization and mineralization of these microbes. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Question?
I feel like I'm creaking open a box, but how does Bloom Chaos work, and do you use it at scale?
Oh, cool.
Yes, we use it.
Like exactly. I've been taught by like a cutting edge solution person of all people that it basically tricks the plant into just horking down as much calcium as it possibly can.
Calcium facility.
That's the scientific version.
Scientific.
My job. Yeah, fine.
We use it like the throttle for the nectar, really. I mean, and the whole key is to get the gas in the carburetor before you put the gas down or the gas pedal down. Otherwise you're gonna uptake too much calcium and strip it out of your leaves. So, like, we go up to 15 mils a gallon, but we don't run it that hard. And like some strains are definitely more susceptible to overusage of Bloom Chaos than others, and that's kind of a touch and go and feel how they react thing. But the way we use it, we build up the calcium. We go hard with the calcium, pretty much from day one. And like once you do that, if you don't start putting it on till like day 20 or so, you're pretty safe to hit it. But we don't ever start at 15 mils. We build the Bloom Chaos up, do that, and then we come back down the.
And you said you're never foliar, so you're actually only adding in the roots or what?
I'm gonna go ahead and step in.
Yeah, he doesn't foliar.
Full of shit. There's a lot of things that pigs does, and there's a lot of things that pigs doesn't do. Foliar sprayed over the last a lot. And we played with it a lot, where we've ramped up like way past recommended ratios, and at the same time got up into like 100 mils per gallon of bone meal. Now, from a scalability factor, that's not scalable.
No.
You know, when you're dumping in 10 gallons into 275 gallons of water, and then you're watering 2,000 gallons at a time, it's really not cost effective. We found, and overall, in veg, we definitely will use Bloom Chaos. We spray multiple times a week, actually, via IPM programs, kelp, Bloom Chaos. There's multiple things that we do that he doesn't do, because he doesn't do any of
He likes to just drive the car. No washing.
So that means that when we were doing those tests, we find like if we were spraying multiple days in a row, that we could go in with a foliar spray 3 days back to back, and then within the fourth day, you would strip out that calcium out of the plant. It would start to become pale, and then you have to build that calcium reserve back up before you can go back at it. Right. So I would recommend definitely spraying it at least once a week, probably twice if you have a smaller garden. We've got to rotate what our IPMs and then what our other foliar sprays in at that point to really be effective and not lose out on not being able to spray with our IPM. But if you can, I would definitely highly recommend, putting that in your program, because you will see vigorous growth from it, but you definitely need to back it up on your calcium reserve. The one thing in terms of Nectar versus any other traditional nutrient line that I've ever used is if you were to talk to a grower and you look at their food chart, any other nutrient line, you'd say less is more. And with Nectar, more is truly more. Your plants can eat what you put out it. From a scalability, the reason why, I've worked for Advanced Nutrients, I've been in the hydro industry for over a decade, like I've used pretty much most of the shit on these shelves. The reason I scale with it is for a couple of reasons. And I've looked at, all the other things that we've been talking about, using salts and doing this and doing that. The reason we stick with it is for a couple of reasons. One, flavor, quality, taste, oil yields. I have 3 years of data where we return anywhere to 20 to 25% of oil, returns for that. But you've got to watch when you really start to scale these things, where he may do something in his 12-light grow that works really well for him, that's not going to scale well for our farm. Right. Reusing soil, rebuilding that soil, and then using some of the overall Nectar line is a great way to go. But it's constantly, when I say freestyle gardening, we're always learning and we're always trying. So if you were to use just Bloom Chaos, and say you're using cutting edge solutions, then you try to use Bloom Chaos on that, you're talking a nitrate. There's no calcium in that molecule. So you would instantly fuck that plant up. You'll have crippling, you'll have curling, you'll have twisting. It's not, you don't have enough calcium reserve.
He was actually really respectful of the cutting edge rep. He was like,
we like cutting edge. They're great people.
John Pizzarelli, the owner of Cutting Edge, has been growing since 1978 in Berkeley, and is one of the smartest people inside of cannabis. And his team, when you look at what they do, they make one of the best products. And when you look at one of the things that you can use from Cutting Edge is their Magnum to help Scott's line. That's versus if you use Cutting Edge and you start putting Bonemeal in his line, you can greatly increase rates. I mean, we were doing it last summer on a couple of our grows. So Cutting Edge, humans in terms of industry leaders, professionals, people, they just set up a tier 1 Shumatsu lab that are doing tons of microbial work. Those are great people to learn from.
And they make their own shit. They're real people.
Yeah.
They're not rebottling some other shit.
Right. No, they've been, in the Santa Rosa area cultivating forever, and, large scale is like shit that you guys can't even fathom that I've seen that, they've been responsible for. But definitely, if you're not using the Bloom Chaos in some sort of foliar spray, you're missing out on the line. You're not seeing it. But that being said, make sure that you increase those calcium rates, and there's a couple other things that I recommend, spraying inside of that, because what happens if you just use Bloom Chaos, you get very fast, rapid growth that's elongated, that you can use a couple other products that really help it kind of shorten that nodal spacing and tighten that growth and make it a little bit more sturdy.
I'm sorry to monopolize questions. Do you still calculate only the ratio, the Herculean to Bloom Chaos, or are you also counting any calcium that's available at that time?
It's usually, we kind of have a set system now that we know what to go above, like 15 mils, we don't really push beyond that, because I don't want to have to go above 60 mils of bone meal. You can see the benefit, but you got to kind of weigh out how much nutrient you're actually using. So.
And genetics are huge, because 1 to 6 is in one plant, 1 to 4 can be in another plant, 1 to 10 on another. So it's one of those where there's no magic recipe. I got guys who put in almost 4 ounces of Bloom Chaos and 2 cups of bone meal. and they're crushing numbers, but again, you can't scale that up. It's not. It's great for the 4-plant guy who's just seeing how ridiculously huge they can grow out back.
Are you asking specifically the ratio of bloom chaos to?
Well, I've just heard it. When I used, I'm not an expert with bloom chaos. I've just heard that there's the ratio to avoid crazy burning and everything else, 6 to 1.
It's never burning, by the way. It's truly just straight up deficiency because you are not feeding. What we call it is the hidden hunger finder. If you want to find out what your plant's hungry for, give it some chaos without anything else. It'll tell you overnight. Oh, you need potassium, you need calcium, you're no magnesium. Where's your manganese? Where's the boron? It'll tell you tomorrow. So it's the hidden hunger finder. I always say,
so you can
start
use
with
it
the
as
middle.
a diagnostic.
Oh shit, man, I use it every single time I do anything. But I also use bone meal every single time I do anything.
You also know the owner, so.
Yeah, I know where to get it from.
So what time scale do you see that change over? I mean, are you doing some day-to-day, you're seeing changes, or is this overrun? Or?
Oh, I've seen it within the 6-hour period of time where you apply something wrong or too heavy or too light, or it's that reactive. And to me, these plants are also, if I did to a pepper plant, we're talking 3, 4, 5 days. Most of the cannabis strains I have, it's hours. I mean, it's not overnight. It's like, holy shit, what did I do at 9? It's screwed.
It can be seasonally too,
Yeah.
If like we do, like we've been playing with it for years in greenhouses, and if you're on a bright sunny day in July when your PPFD is just super screaming and you go in with a foliar feed and you've properly hydrated everything, we've seen 2-3 inches of growth on some genetics that are more sativa dominant in a 24 to 48 hour period. In those instances that we've been doing that though, you really start to have to crank your calcium at that point.
If you're reusing your soil, like they kind of do, I reuse my soil. Use bone meal to help pre-digest in your soil while it's cooking, and your microbes are doing their thing. So it'll help when you start off with an abundance of calcium. So you can start off with your bloom chaos much sooner, because as soon as you transplant, your roots go wild. They're going to get that bone meal immediately because you've already pre-digested it in your soil for months. 2 months, say you do. That will definitely help.
And with the chaos too, it's a tool, and it can be designed. We can discuss this off camera and somewhere else, but it's.
Oh, I forgot about the camera.
During foliar feeding or watering in, or every cycle you can manipulate the plant in the way you apply the actual product. If you're foliar feeding in beds, you promote more stout, bushy growth. If you water it only, you promote elongation and growing legs. And bloom, if you're foliar feeding at the beginning, it sets flower sites tighter, more close together. If you water it at the beginning, it elongates that plant so the flower sites start to form, and it puts all that energy into the fruit building. So there's like 4 or 5 different modes that you can use bloom chaos, and each one of them is going to control the plant, either grow taller, faster, bushier, fatter, branchier, buddier. I mean, it's what you want from the plant. We can control it with the bloom chaos. And so as long as you got those two together, bloom chaos, and the lipids, by the way, I mean, we can't. Herculean's great, but by itself, you're fucking killing your garden because we keep that pH low so we don't lose all the calphos during the process. So you need the Olympus up to bring that back up into the range to where it's accessible for the plant. So.
And Olympus Up is a calcium source. It's also important to understand with bloom chaos, you want to use as many calcium sources as possible. Herc is the main driver for it, but Demeters is a great calphos source, a great calcium source. Increase your Demeters if you're getting some type of clawing or some type of twisting. Increase the Demeters. I mean, amino acids are needed for proteins too. So when you're trying to grow plants like crazy, they're trying to generate new cells. So what's in the cell? It's calcium and it's proteins, and amino acids are proteins. So increase your athenas too. A lot of these OGs, a lot of these different strains, they'll start to give you a claw down. And so when you see that, that should tell you increase your calcium and increase your amino acids. And that's your kind of indicator. It's a tool as long as you can use it right, as long as you can put the right precursors in there. Then by all means, you're going to have fantastic results with bloom chaos. That's also why we made triggers, because it's amino acids and it's calcium. And that primes the plant so you can use bloom chaos. So when you're using it, you're on your 3rd day of spraying with bloom chaos, you're going to be depleting your reserves. But if you can go bloom chaos trigger, bloom chaos trigger, bloom chaos trigger, the trigger is priming your plant for the bloom chaos. So it's just about having different forms of calcium and making sure the plant has adequate levels of the elements that need calcium for the bloom chaos to give you the results you need.
And you watch your soil too. I mean, depending on if you're buying Rexius or rainforest soil, then don't use a lot of bloom chaos ever.
I just use garden sand.
good luck.
Huh?
I just use plate stand.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah, it's actually better. It's way better.
She's
Yeah.
Maybe a more simple question about scale and marketability. Obviously, Heroes of the Farm is really well respected. Their flower. I shop at Lifted. I'm a fan. I'm wondering if you found there's a significant marketing angle to using natural inputs, or if it's just the flower speaks for itself.
I think the flower speaks for itself. I mean, you know, like test results, it's like test results means nothing to me. I mean, it's all about the terpene content. And go smoke some 31% flower grown on salt, and go smoke some nectar flower, test 30%, and tell me what you feel in 10 minutes.
Testing should be based on terpenes too. That's what it's bullshit. People, the average consumer looks at numbers and they just go, "Oh, well, let's get high." But there's so much more in terms of the complexity inside of cannabis of what you're looking for. And the bud tender representative of the farm should be educated on what terpenes and different cannabinoid complexes do to people. You know, and from a scalability standpoint, you know, nectar is good for multiple reasons, but it's also super forgiving to those employees where, you know, in similar gardens using cutting edge, you know, for example, and all of a sudden you're like, you stacked up my garden and you go to do a slurry test and it's like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, if you have a meter error out, it's because your employees definitely fucked something super up. So I would definitely say that overall with scaling nectar, it's about the quality first and foremost, and then there's benefits inside of oil returns and a lot of the other stuff, and then the ease for the people that you're trying to, you know, the human's the biggest element inside of a garden. You know, you can use whatever you want, all these products will grow good things, but if you don't have the right human doing it, and that product really helps the humans inside of the gardens as they learn how to scale, how to run different genetics, and overall how to garden.
And then put your ego away for a minute and just trying it so you know what the fuck good weed is.
Right. I mean, terpenes deliver cannabinoids. Higher terpene levels with lower THC levels probably going to get someone more medicated than someone that has 31% THC and 0.5% of terpenes.
Yeah, it goes back to maximizing the entourage effect, where you've got all those different elements in higher percentages in there.
I personally have seen lab analysis where, you know, they did a control of like a soil or a salt-based grow, and they take the same strain, do a nectar, and they not only doubled the 5 terpenes that were in both of them with the nectar one, but the nectar also added 7 more terpenes to the analysis.
Yep, exactly.
That's fucking crazy. I've never seen anything do that before. So like the fact that a product and a line can actually diversify and actually get the full potential of the plant.
Yep.
Then, well, when you're heroes and you're running actually like that much of the line, and they're finding, because the 4 gets you great, the 6 gets you, oh my gosh, the 10 gets you, holy shit, look at these profiles. I mean, when you drink wine, you don't want to just taste Merlot red berry. You want to taste the oak, the fire that burned the oak. What kind of wood was burned to make the fire to burn the oak? You get all those layers, and that's what, I mean, I get high just smelling their terpene vials that have nothing in it, just huffing on it, trying to get my smell center back. And I can sit there and get buzzed just by smelling 0 THC vapor. And I get stoned off that. So if I get high of smelling being in a room that has terpenes versus smoking somebody's 30% mills grown shit, I'm not going to get the same thing. You grow great, huge, big flowers with mills, there's no question. But they still have to go talk to the guys at Heroes to get the terpenes back in.
Still love it, James. Well, you know, one of the things you look at, like, we'll use Jungle Boys as an example, and my friend that actually was a formulator for gender hydroponics put it really good in Cali like 3 weeks ago. He's like, if you like fake tits, you'll love the Jungle Boys. It all looks great, but inside it's really shallow because it all tastes the same. So when we go out into the market, one of the biggest things before, because you know, you're handing out, you know, how many different gardeners in Oregon, mass overproduction in the state, are bringing in samples to dispensaries? Everybody is. And the dispensaries can only consume so much, and there's the dispensaries that only care about the price, and then there's the dispensaries that actually care about the consumer. But if you do the Pepsi Coke challenge and you had all the different weed that's grown in Oregon, it's the flavor. You know, all of our weed, if we have orange cookies, it should taste like oranges. If we have Scooby, it should taste like Scooby. If we have Dog Walker, it should taste like Dog Walker. And 6 samples of Jungle Boys weed this last summer from the Chalice Festival. It looked great. It had a decent aroma and opening the bag. It was hard as fuck, like it had a PGR in it, which it probably didn't, or probably did. But at the same time, all of the weed burnt like charcoal. and all tasted the same. And it wasn't a good week. And I mean, when I told
Craft cannabis.
yeah, it's craft cannabis. You know?
It's called a K.
Yeah. Put it in a shoebox that has a super sweet picture, and have, you know, a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram and get a rapper behind it. That's, you know, it's a different approach, and it's all about the taste and the quality of the overall product. And I'll be honest, you know, it's taken a while to learn to scale Nectar and find out how to make it affordable. But there's a reason that I've never abandoned it. I mean, it's just it's the overall quality of what we produce.
Because I assume you could try anything you wanted to.
I have.
Oh,
I worked for Advanced Nutrients for years. I mean,
I don't give this to them either.
Yeah,
I mean, they pay for it.
No, we do not get anything for free. And we've been offered, you know, I've been offered free product from a lot of people, and I've gotten free product from a lot of people. I've worked for nutrient companies. I've worked in the hydro industry, and it's truly just the difference of what, and you know, you're constant learning.
Farms like Heroes could literally grow for free and be 100% profit because that's how many people want to be in their farm. And to me, that's the honor of organs only and Nectar. Being in a farm like this, where you go on their farm and you have 28 employees smiling, not one of them piss off about their job today. And that to me is magic. I've been to a lot of farms where you're like, man, I feel the hate. I can smell the hate. Everybody has hate in the bone. You get their weed, you're feeling the love of 28 fucking employees who whistle while they work. And when I say that, I mean, I walk down the aisles while they're harvesting and they're like, they're having a good day. And it's like, wow, you guys have the fucking hardest jobs out there. Farming this stuff is not easy. No. Farming at their scale is not easy. And the stress I can't even imagine what this like goes through these guys' heads. And they're smiling every day. And that to me is just, that's awesome. That's what makes it so easy to work with guys like Heroes of the Farm. And no, we don't give them dick. I mean, we charge them, they pay, everybody's happy, but it works that way. I don't pay for advertising ever. And these guys know what it's about. So we appreciate being in a farm like that, and we give them as much as we can, but you know, we're a small business too. We gotta get paid.
That's the other thing, using Nectar at commercial scale, you get tools. You get tools that no one else has in an organic sense, and you have tools even the salt guys don't have, which is Bloom Chaos. I mean, that it changes the way we grow organically. It changes the way we do it commercially because you do get better synthesized materials. You do get a better end product. You have people coming back going, yeah, that stuff's good, but what about that Nectar stuff? Every time, and it's like that is why they do it. It's why we do it. It's why we all kind of contribute together in the sense of
it's a community.
Yes.
That's the other thing is that I can bring a grower out to them. They don't feel like they have to pull the sheets over shit to hide stuff. They want to share because their success is all of the Nectar success. Nectar success is all of their success. So I like the community that has been created around this style of gardening and the people that's brought into it. I mean, I can call any one of their farms and how they use their stuff, and open-minded people will talk to each other. You go into all these synthetic farms, they're not going to fucking tell you how they cut the, you know, what angle they cut their clones at. Fuck you, get out of my farm. I don't want to talk to you.
It's proprietary.
Yeah, it's like, no, it's not. It's a fucking weed. I grow shit on my floor all day long. Why we can't get together and just make this a community? And that's what I think Nectar's done, and Cultured's done, and Fullon's done, and SLF has done. We've created this group of people that go, hey, we can talk to each other without having, you know, having our dick stuck, and we'll be fine. You know, we don't have to all be, you know, business phobic with each other.
I learned that off the Facebook feed.
Okay, so
Any other questions? Take it home, Tim.
Oh, we covered it. This will last like 30 minutes is exactly what we're going to talk about. So, we're good.
All right. We're good?
I think we're all good.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. That's that.
Okay, so that was fun. I sure appreciate you watching all the way to the end. I hope you found that interesting, and I'm wondering if you had any questions after watching that, things that were brought up in your mind from the topics that were talked about that you'd like me to go into deeper myself, or bringing some of those guys in to answer questions. So let me know about that in the comments, and like I said, we got a couple more of these coming up. April 20th, there's also one April 6th. I'm going to work on making the video, doing more video stuff at those, so y'all can be more a part of that. Although, if you can make it out, that'd sure be cool too. That's the show for today. Questions in the comments if you have any. Tell me what you're thinking. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. For more information about anything on today's show, go to our website, OCGFAM.com. And if you buy anything while you're there, use the code OCGFAM2018. It's going to save you 20%, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The OCGFAM show, it's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCGFAM show. See you tomorrow.